joined us, you're still on to Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. Now let's get to our conversation for today. Hundreds of Nigerians and other Africans who built, lived, and wealth in the UK have died without a will, leaving their estates, homes, savings, and assets at risk of being permanently claimed by the British government. With no next of kin identified, these estates are classified as bona vacantia, ownerless properties. Families back in Africa, often unaware of their relatives' financial legacies, may never reclaim what rightfully belongs to them. The result is not just financial losses, but a severing of family histories and the erasure of hard-earned wealth. The UK government's unclaimed estates list continues to grow, highlighting the critical issue, the absence of estate planning among African migrants. Legal gaps, cultural hesitations, and lack of awareness leave assets unclaimed, turning personal legacies into government-held properties. As today runs out for families to make claims, the following steps are encouraged, which include drafting a legally binding will outlining assets distribution, maintaining updated financial records, and informing trusted family members, and ensuring next of kin are aware of assets held abroad and all over the world also. Thank you so very much, and let's have a conversation for today. I still have with me Dr. Olayinka Oyebide and Innocent Antolo, but thank you so very much, gentlemen.
My pleasure
for
be
being here. So I'd love to start with you, Doctor, with the Japa syndrome, which of course has sought its ugly head yet again. The first time we had such kind of exodus was when Muhammad Buhari came into power with the structural adjustment program, which of course was very likened to what we have today. That's when the Japa thing actually started. Nigerians in droves, very skilled people, left Nigeria to different parts of the world. Right from that time up until now, there are some Nigerians, our brothers and our sisters, have not made themselves back home. They have bought assets in different parts of the world, and today those assets are about to, to be dashed away, if I might use that word, to their countries where they are domiciled. Now, speak to us on the effect of leadership deficit right here in our country and how that is affecting what is being talked about today.
Well, you see, if it is only those who even Japa that is the problem, that would not even be as big as it is now. But most of those assets we are talking about are not even the assets of those who Japa, either now or before. Most of those assets belong to people who have stolen our commonwealth and have decided to go to the UK or wherever in the world to build mansions in which they will not live, they will never live, which their children perhaps will never live, or even if their children live in them, they will still not be able to exhaust all the things that they need. When you have a situation where you have foolish leadership that rather than attract its own experts abroad to come home, but rather drive its own experts from home and drive them away. That's what happens. The places where our people are running to, it is because they are well-run society. They are well-managed society. So people get there. What should be a commonwealth in Nigeria, one man will steal the whole state's budget, carry it abroad, go and buy a mansion, and a mansion which he will never live in. Let me tell you, look at our politicians today. Almost all of them, in fact, not all of them have assets abroad. And except they are held down by sickness. No Nigerian politician will stay 6 months abroad without being held down by sickness. If he travels abroad, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he will run back because he believes that things are happening here. But the same man will be stupid and foolish. He will steal all the assets in Nigeria and go and buy houses in UK, in London, buy houses in UK, in US, in Dubai, and everywhere. Houses where we only live maybe 1 week or 2 weeks. So, and these houses, because they are bought or built on stolen money, some of them are not known to their families or to people. So when they die intestate without a will, such thing reverts to the state, I mean to the country. I've traveled to the US before, and I slept in a house, not free of charge though, I paid. And I was told that the house belonged to I won't mention the person. The person served under the military. He was a minister under the military, under the president, military president Babangida. That the house belonged to that minister. And I slept there. I was made to pay. And the guy that was taking care of the place told me that this house belongs to a Nigerian minister. And he told me the name. And I said, so why are you renting it? I said, the house has been here. And the man doesn't come. And that even when he's going to come, or a family member is going to come, they will allow him to keep the place in shape. So rather than allow the place, just be keeping this place in shape every day, he uses for B&B, that's bread and breakfast. So he charges money, and that money goes to him, without the knowledge of the owner. So, and I asked myself, I said, what kind of foolishness is this? Why should, and the guy is being paid a salary, he's being paid salaries, not that he uses whatever he gets from the B&B as his salary, no. So he's getting in 2 ways. So when Nigerians are foolish enough to steal the country's commonwealth and go and buy property abroad, then when they die, in fact, this property I'm talking about might have reverted to the guy who was taking care of the place now. Only God knows, except unless he doesn't have the paper. So people will continue, something will continue to happen when people are stupid, when people don't use their sense. Father Kuka, some years back, wrote an article which he adapted from a Russian writer. It was titled, "How Many Clothes Do I Need?" What it means is that, look, you have so many clothes in your wardrobe, how many of you do you wear in a year? You don't wear everything in a year, and you continue to buy more clothes, and this is exactly what is happening. Our politicians steal from our commonwealth. They go and buy houses everywhere in the world, houses where they will never live. You have a house in Dubai, you have a house in UK, you have a house in America, you have a house in Germany, how many of those houses will you live in? So, and they have houses also in Nigeria. Some of them have houses in their villages, they've never gone there. Some have houses in Lagos, they are staying there in Abuja. So as I said earlier on, no politician, Henry, if you have somebody who gives you an offer now, that Henry, I want to sponsor you to the US to go and stay 6 months, I'll pay your salaries and everything you need, you will gladly go. But a Nigerian politician will not spend 3 weeks outside Nigeria, because he believes that if he leaves, something else will happen behind him. So unless they are sick, so if you know that very much, that you can't spend 4 weeks or 4 months outside Nigeria, why do you need to buy a house in the US or in the UK where you will not stay? It is a problem. Look, in those days, we were forced, our forefathers were forced and carried abroad. But this time around, we go with our senses complete. Well, are their senses complete? I don't think so. We go by ourselves and we steal our own money. Look, if all the Nigerian money that are in foreign accounts or foreign banks or foreign economy are brought back home, some of those economies will either collapse or almost tend to collapse, and our own will be better. But we have people who are very foolish, who don't have sense, who think that they want to steal all our wealth here and go and invest it there, and they don't even invest this thing on doing anything.
Very true.
It is not that they set up factories there. They just buy houses. They buy big mansions in which nobody lives. So what is the essence?
Very, very true, Doctor.
I mean, so I don't buy whether when those assets, when those houses revert to UK government, it takes no skin off my nose, because even when they didn't revert to UK government, they were not useful to Nigerians. They are only useful to the thieves who have stolen our wealth and invested it there.
Very, very true, Doctor. Innocent Aduluba, while the Godwin Emefiele's case, the CBN governor, the former CBN governor, of course, is still on, but at the initial time, I was so speechless, when they analyzed how they launder money, how it passes through different stop gaps, and until it becomes so subtle that you can't trace it back to the original person, and such loot is used to buy the same properties that you cannot identify the people who own them. According to Premium Times, there are about 20 mansions that are linked to our current president today, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Apart from that, according to Bloomberg, I'd love to read this out to you. Corporate documents show that Seyi Tinubu owns an offshore company that paid Deutsche Bank about $10.8 million for the property in late 2017. That's a particular property. And they said the lender had taken over the house from a Nigerian businessman, Kolawole Aluko, through a foreclosure. So the property was owned by this Kolawole, but was taken, and Seyi Tinubu went and bought the property for $10.8 million. Now, this is some of the things we are talking about, just like Dr. Radley said. We have leaders who have needs here in Nigeria, but rather love to put our own money in different parts of the world, leaving us with lots of deficit here.
Well, the same necessity is the mother of invention. So we're out there, they invent digital wristwatches, iPhone, touchscreen laptop. In Nigeria, we are inventing new ways to launder money. Invention is invention, And that's where some people wonder why names like Hush Puppy is still living large. And we who are pointing at them and calling them thieves or whatever, we are still crying when it's time to pay just a house rent, if you allow me.
Yes.
But beyond the government, there are people who die because their families in Africa are not aware of their estates. It sometimes will lead to permanent loss. Punch has given 2 cases of Adenike Adebiyi. She died in Hackney, London in 2004. There was also Solomon Adekombi, who also died in Colchester, Essex, about 4 years ago. They died in the States. No identified next of kin. Missing documentation. The estates remain unclaimed. Their legacies, inheritance of being bequeathed is at risk of being forgotten. But there are challenges.
So would you trace that to these owners trying to hide something? Because if really you bought something from a transparent process, it's a thing of joy that you have a nest of kin. But for someone not to have a nest of kin, do you think such wealth or such assets are transparent?
There are challenges.
Yes.
One of the challenges are cultural hesitations, where in many cultures in Africa, people think if you want to write a will, it's a premonition for death being close by. So discussing death death and will is considered taboo it now leads to reluctance in planning for asset distribution. There are lack of awareness as a challenge to many families in Nigeria and other African countries are not aware of what properties their family members in the diaspora own. Again, there are genealogical gaps where the information provided in official records is often incomplete.
Yes.
Sometimes in traveling, you know, at the passport office, some names get too long. You have to shorten them.
Yes.
And by that time, certain name, official nomenclature, identity can get shortened or missed completely.
And lose its...
and then, and with that kind of name, there can be a lacuna in the history of next of kin communication. You know, so, and if you look at the book by Russian writer William Tolstoy, written in 1906, Leo Tolstoy, the 23 Tales, chapter 14. The chapter says, how much land does a man need? How much land? Like, likened to, we had a doctor told us, Dr. Kuka, the Catholic bishop adapted a book, how much, you know. So, you look at how, like it or not, whatever side of the divide, I am, Doctor, commending Alhaji Aliko Dangote, whose industry or company is here in Nigeria and provides a direct source of income and employment for people. The one you loot monies and then take them out there, because this thing now, this trend of missing property owners, I think is about to stop. Because the current trend of, in quote, the jackpot people are hungry people, are people seeking better life. And they go there to consciously take a mortgage, many with their family, wife, spouses, and children. So I think that gap is going to close. But from the looting side, again, the intention of the looter is to keep this property discreet. I'm sure there are many phony names used that you can't even trace to the original identity of the owner, so they can stay under the wraps, you know. So, again, the international community who call Nigeria poor are not sincere to us. Look at our generous ancestor, General Abacha. At what time does he instruct
the payment
human beings to deposit some money to Nigeria from
every single year? We keep getting.
What phone number does he use to call these guys and say, send, you know? So
Nigeria is broke. Send them more money.
You know, and if these people are generous and sincere, transparent, you offload. Once I take monies there beyond your country's limit, I've seen a Briton standing on the streets and shouting that they should tell Nigerians at that time what has happened to President Mohammed, but they should say the truth. The police were hushing him on the road there, you know, and that they shouldn't, that the government shouldn't be greedy about Nigeria's wealth and what they should say it. So you wonder, like you use the word, our commonwealth being, in quote, willed willy-nilly out there as if it was a private wealth, you know. So it's one thing to read this news. We will talk around it in roundaboutations. But the effecting authorities across, are they opening their doors? Is this another political bait towards the next election? You know how it is, Doctor. So we don't, it's neither here nor there.
You know, very
it's
true.
just to ventilate our knowledge.
Yes, very true. Doctor, let's talk about, you know, this colonial mentalism and slave mentality, you know, that we have. And up until today, after many years of getting unchained by our colonialists, our leaders, especially those in authority who can afford it, still make themselves, you know, present with cap in hand, you know, to the leaders that we have, unfortunately, that are often there to ask for one thing or another, which of course is some of the reasons we are facing the things that we go through today. Our leaders up until today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if he wants to go for a vacation, rather than maybe take advantage of the Yankari Game Reserve and other tourist attraction sites we have in Nigeria, would rather love to do it in France and the UK, while telling us that while telling us that he is the most patriotic Nigerian. So speak to us on this slave mentality that is still very much available even in 2025 and beyond.
Of all our presidents who have ruled since our return to democracy in 1999, the one I still have some modicum of respect for when it comes to such things is Obasanjo. You may say every other thing about him, but Obasanjo, maybe because he's healthy or whatever, we never has never been known to travel abroad on medical treatment. But our leaders here, they will tell you they built a world-class hospital in so place and all that, but when they have a headache, they are in France, they are in UK, they are in US, they are in Portugal and so on. So that idea, or maybe it is the day we are able to, which they will never allow, write it into our constitution that any public official, either local government chairman or whatever, will not be allowed to travel abroad unless all medical institutions in Nigeria have been exhausted or explored to see that the kind of ailment he has can never be treated in Nigerian hospital. And I don't think there's any. Because Nigerians, we have the knowledge, we may not have the technical know-how, or the equipment, but even all these equipment are what can be imported, and Nigerians will be trained to operate it. Don't be surprised that most of them who travel abroad, when they get abroad, among the team of doctors, because doctors don't, when they have complicated cases, it's not only one doctor that attends to it. Among the team of doctors, we will either be one or two Nigerians. So until our leaders wake up and leave their words, because they always say, oh, Nigeria is our country, we must salvage it and we must do this and that. But they are not the one doing so. In fact, most of them are like tenants in Nigeria. They only live in Nigeria, but their hearts are not here. They spend all our resources to take care of themselves. So we must make sure that there is either a provision in our law that makes sure that they don't travel abroad with our resources. Any politician that is sick that wants to travel abroad must take it from his or her salary. Unless we do that, they will not allow it to work. Even when they tell you that they are going to France to go and private visit, it's a lie. It's medical. How many of them go on holidays? They don't go on any holiday. As I told you, no Nigerian politician will ever leave Nigeria for 4 or 5 weeks. Because if he leaves, he will think that some big things are happening behind him or something will be done behind him. How many of the governors or presidents have ever gone on leave? Have they ever gone on leave?
Yes, doctor, you just reminded me. Yes, doctor, you just brought my mind back to Obasa, who took a French leave, and before he could make himself back home, they've already impeached him.
So that is it. They don't see it as anything, because unless, what did he go to do in Atlanta or wherever he went? So unless we make it mandatory that any Nigerian politician that is ill must be treated in Nigeria. If we can't treat it, then let them also suffer the same kind of things that the common man suffers. It is because they have unending resources at their beck and call. That's why they are doing what they are doing. If it is, even in South Africa here, as their president never traveled abroad for any ailment, no.
Doctor,
so why is our own different?
I support you,
Why
Doctor.
is our own different?
Yes, I think that there should be, like you say, if they will allow it, a caveat that from local government to House of Assembly, governor, deputy, minister, senator, if you are going to sit on those portfolio, you will not unless there are no doctor, you will not travel outside Nigeria until your tenure is over. Yes. And within that time, as a human being, you can fall ill. Anything can happen. But just know that this is the clause for the office. Do you accept? Because you are not going there with gun pointed at your head. If you do, oh yeah, let's go. If you don't, leave it. There will be people who will accept it. Take it or leave it. And sorry, quickly, President Nelson Mandela was treated repeatedly in a South African military hospital. He was. I'm sure they were not the best in the world, but that's what they have at the time. So, and then the Phillips Consulting have also reported in Punch that about 1 billion US dollars is spent annually by Nigerians on medical tourism abroad. 60% of these are for 4 key specialties: oncology, orthopedics, nephrology, and cardiology. They do this because these 4 is prevalent annually, but not sufficiently invested in Nigeria. So if these are known, why don't we have them here? In fact, hire some of the best doctors to come and work here, and then people will come to them here because a client, a customer goes to where he can find solution.
Because the truth remains, the much that I know, the Aso Rock Presidential Hospital is one of the best. The money pumped into that place by Ebele and all other people, it's more than enough. So there's no reason why our leaders would not take advantage of some of these things. But how much and how well that they rather would prefer something outside of the country is yet another thing. But let's, of course, get straight to, what brought us to what we are talking about, and that is on the issue of will. Doctor, maybe you might help us make sense on this. And not only do we have such, scenarios and incidents in outside of the country, even in Nigeria here. Nigerians are very scared, just like Innocent did say, are very so scared of writing their will. They think writing a will means you've certified your death warrant and you might die anytime soon. Lots of children right now become enemies when their dad or the breadwinner, is long gone. How do you think we can better manage this situation, even when we look at it from what you see outside of the country? But let's domesticate it here in Nigeria.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a very good question you have asked. But the way I see it is that we need to let our people know that writing a will is not a case of thinking that you are dying tomorrow. You can write a will, and the will will be will not you will not die in another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on your age. Is a cultural thing. Before the advent of colonialism or Western form of lifestyle, we have a way, it's usually unwritten, but our forefathers, they have a way where they share their property among their children. They have a ratio and everything. But you see, because of modernization now, we have what we call will. Yes, will can be written, and we also, even those of us who are educated. How many write well? How many? It's not a thing. It's not a case of education alone. It's just that we have not been good enough, or maybe enlightened enough, to know that writing a will does not mean you are going to die soon. And also, some look at it that, what do I have? Why do I want to write a will? But we look at it in a way that, especially those who are successful or who are buoyant, um, there's a very popular Nigerian who died recently. He has a will, but the will is being contested. They are still quarreling and fighting over the shares, the formula of sharing and all that. So
Exactly.
It's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing project. People will have to be educated on the willing, I mean, on the benefit of writing a will. But me, as I always tell people, as an African or as a person, I believe that the greatest legacy you can leave for your children is education. Many great people in the world today, whose name we are still hearing, educated their children and put their money into foundations. So most of these foundations that dole out money to NGOs and other things around the world, the money is money willed to foundations by the owners. So why don't we think about that too? You give some parts to your children so that they won't suffer, yes. Then they give other parts to other foundations so that other people, because in all honesty, what is the essence of giving a large chunk of money to your children, the money they will not be able to enjoy because there are those who are deprived among them who will make sure they either snub life out of them or steal the money. So, the one we should be thinking about is the betterment of the whole society and not some certain individuals. So wills are necessary, but at the same time, we also must think of how does my will benefit the society, not my immediate family alone, especially for those who can afford it.
Yeah, very, very true. Innocent Aduluba, in 60 seconds, if you may. Doctor did cite very good references, and the one he was talking about was Herbert Wigwe. Of course, the will Herbert wrote actually helped the children to have gotten back their estates, from the father and the sisters, the siblings who were rather saying that the child, that the daughter, the surviving, wasn't matured enough to handle the humongous amount of money and estates left by the father. But talking about education, just like Doctor did say, bequeathing education is the most important thing. But do you think it is a lasting solution? Let's take another reference. Moshood Abiola educated his children so very well, but up until today, Kola and his son and his brother are still fighting all over the place for properties in the UK, in the US, and other parts of the world. So speak to us on that. Where do you think we can get it all arrested?
There are, in truth, contested cases, but that does not negate the overall benefits and importance of writing a will. With all apologies, some parts of Nigeria, lately I saw a publication in Punch where some Igbo women were crying that women are not allowed to inherit their father's property. You can imagine. The reason being that they've already been married out. And I would say my daughter, where I write a will, whoever she marries, is a beneficiary of my property because I sired her into true life. She's my child. Marriage does not. So there are many sides to will writing. Some people believe in their 30s they are already house owners, but they are too young to write a will, And I tell people, if an infant can die, anybody can. My mate die. That means I can die. By the grace of God, I'm still living. So, the enlightenment should go across age, across gender, and across culture. But will writing is important because for the state of Nigerian economy and what we cry for, if those untraced apartments, properties in the UK as well, on the other days, are identified and traced to people, look, their lives will change for the better.
Definitely.
Yes, that's why I would drop my information.
Very, very true. Of course, unfortunately, what is our loss is UK's gain. Most of these properties worth millions of pounds would have come to Nigeria, but of course it's gone to people who even have more than enough.
But on the final note, I could suggest that since the UK government or anywhere in the world have established that these are Nigerian properties, it's just the owners that we don't know. Can allow, well, sometimes we don't know what or how the Nigerian government will go about the proceeds, but these things can be auctioned, can be, and then the fund sent to that country, rather than it just be on I don't know. It's just an idea that came to me spontaneously.
You want them to reward the foolishness of your people? No man does that.
Very true. Just remember some of our planes that were seized by the Chinese. I don't know. They just released one, which our president is currently taking advantage of now. So 4 is not yet back to Nigeria. So those are some of the properties.
And are they discussing that?
Of course, it is a forgotten issue, actually. So very unfortunate. So we're not just talking about properties belonging to Nigerians. We're still talking about properties that belongs to the Nigerian state, held by other nations around the world, worth millions and billions of dollars. And this is where we found ourselves very lamentable, if you ask me. That's just about the time we have today. Thank you so very much, Dr. Olayinka Oyebile, for making this wonderful discussion, an awesome one. We truly do appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Innocent Aduluwa. Thank you as always.
My pleasure.
For being here. All right, people, that's just about the time we have. Lord, to say thank you to you. But please do well to visit us. You can always find us to read more on what we have discussed today. When you visit us at enterprisetvnews.com, you may equally rewatch this when you visit us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. I am Henry Igwebike. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow for yet another awesome one. Thank you and bye-bye.